right. Welcome back to the Life Legacy Podcast. As always, we bring on inspiring guests that will help you upgrade the quality of your life at home. And today is no different. I get the honor of bringing on Emma Heiner to the podcast, and you'll hear through her story. She's an author, and she's doing a lot of public speaking now. And we're actually making her life story documentary together for Your Life Legacy, the company, to help showcase her message to the world. And so, Emma, it's just an honor to have you on. And I know from understanding your story that our guests will be able to come out with a lot of good takeaways. So thanks for being here.
Yeah, of course. I'm very excited.
Yeah. And so to start, I like to just dive into help our audience understand who you are and what you care about. So what drives you? Like, what are you passionate about, Emma?
So, I've struggled a lot over the years with finding purpose and finding joy and happiness. And it was a long, long journey to find that.
Mm.
And I'm still working on it, but I think through all my experiences, I've learned a little bit about how to get that deeper happiness and the deeper confidence. And so now I just want to share some of that and try and inspire people to find that for themselves and inspire them to just take that journey and thinking, if she can do it, so can I. So
Hmm.
I want to go and testify of that and testify of Christ and try and inspire people.
I love that. Who do you feel like your message resonates to the most?
I don't know. It's interesting because I was pretty isolated for a long time and basically only interacted with those in my life. And so it's my family. For a while, it was friends, but then it was more family friends. And they all come from different backgrounds and they don't have the same things that I do. Some of them don't have any health challenges, some do, but it's different health challenges. And I feel like because of that and in just my interaction with people, I try and come up with messages that's like, doesn't matter what your background is. If you're going through a hard time, which is everybody, then you can find something from this. So I think health challenges for sure, people will connect if they have that. But I think just anybody who's struggling and trying to find their happiness, find their purpose, I think could hopefully find something from what I'm saying.
Yeah. I know they will. And I'm excited about this. And what you said about most people are going through hard things. And I don't know the exact quote, but Henry B. Eyring talks about, when you look at a room full of people, just imagine over 50% of them are going through some of the hardest trials and challenges that they've gone through in their life, and more than that, you will be correct. And I just
Mhm.
find that so interesting. So that's been something I've tried to implement. And when you see people, see them as someone that's just on a human journey, experiencing raw life. And something I like about how we've had our conversations is you're raw, and you open up about what it's really like. And I feel like there's not much sugarcoating with Emma Heiner.
Yeah.
And so let's dive into, like your childhood, what normal life kind of looked like for you, and where did you grow up?
Yeah, so I grew up in Utah and in Provo specifically. And when I was born, was completely healthy. I didn't have any health challenges. So for me, my childhood was pretty dreamy. And also just the area I lived in, it's kind of the movie-esque where everyone knows everyone and kids are riding around in the neighborhood and everyone's saying hi. Um, and so it was just this very happy life and childhood. I have four older sisters and one younger brother. And so, with me being the youngest girl, I also was spoiled and was treated like the little princess of the family. So, I had a really good family situation as well. My parents were wonderful parents. Um, I had a lot of friends and loved that as well. I would say what defined my childhood the most would be physical activity.
Mm.
I loved sports. I loved them. I loved to play all of them. I loved to be with my friends on the field. It was just my dream scenario, or anything active, really. Riding bikes, riding scooters, running around. My personality kind of fit into that. I was very driven. My mom recalls that my kind of life philosophy at that age, or in the early years, was I can do it. And if I can't do it, then I'll figure it out and I'll put in the work and then I'll do it. I was very determined, very sassy and happy and playful and just always going and doing stuff, which was it was fun. It led to a good playful childhood, which I think was a wonderful experience. So,
Yeah. Tell me about your parents. What are they like?
my dad is very quiet and my mom is very talkative, which is fun. They kind of balance each other out. And my dad is very like mathematical science, and my mom's very artsy. And so I had a really good balance growing up of having kind of all sides. Um, my dad worked a lot when I was growing up, so he wasn't there a ton, but he was there. And my mom was there all the time. She was very involved in my life and very much a cheerleader. Both of them always had an attitude for me of let's not try and like stop her from doing stuff, especially when I started to have health challenges. They were not helicopter parents of like, no, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. Even when they knew that what I was doing wasn't going to succeed, I said, I think it will succeed. So they said, all right, go ahead and try it. We're not going to get in your way. So they were very supportive in that way, which was a gift, I think.
Mm. That's interesting. The helicopter parents, because I feel like in that, and well, I think before we dive into that, actually, let's talk about your call to adventure, your call to your big life changes and health challenges that um at moments probably didn't feel like this great adventure, right? And so talk us through the initiation of that and what kind of happened there.
So I had some health challenges when I was around 6 years old. I had E. coli, but then I fully recovered from that and everything seemed to be fine. And then I started having symptoms for this new thing when I was 9 years old. And so we initially actually thought it was rheumatoid arthritis because it was my joints, um, which would have been a better diagnosis, in my opinion, in terms of comfort of life. So it started out with that and was going up to Primary Children's Hospital in Utah and seeing a rheumatologist and working through that. But over time, probably 8 months to a year, the diagnosis was switched to systemic scleroderma, which is a whole other thing and it's way worse. And it's incredibly rare, which was unfortunate a little bit because we didn't really know what was going on. And it's incredibly, incredibly rare with children as well.
Mm.
So my doctor didn't know how to treat me. He actually ended up calling doctors from the East Coast of the United States. I'm on the West Coast. And he called doctors from Europe, trying to say, like, what do I do here? I don't even know. So if my doctor doesn't even know, how am I, as a 9 year old, supposed to know what's going on? So
And what were like some of the symptoms of that diagnosis? And like what for someone that doesn't understand that diagnosis, like what to explain it to like a 10-year-old, what how would you explain that?
yeah, so it's a progressive disease, meaning it's not like a car accident where you one day are perfectly healthy, the next day you're at rock bottom with your health. It's more over time. And it's an autoimmune disease, which means my body attacks itself and it's getting into situations and attacking organs that it's not supposed to. And so if there's with this autoimmune disease, there's variations of it, meaning it's not like the flu where if you have it, you're going to have the same thing that everyone else is having. There's some people that have these symptoms and other people don't have those at all. And there's some people where they have the same symptoms, but one is worse and one person's isn't that bad. So for me personally, it started out with joints and lungs and my circulation system. So, like one of the days, my mom and I were in a store and it was summer, and I had a little bit of ice cream and the air conditioning was on, and I was eating it and I looked down and my hands were literally purple because the blood vessels had constricted, so there was no oxygen going in there. And then when I went outside and got warm, then they go back to normal. It's like the and so there's circulation problems where it's not functioning properly. I also have digestive system problems. So, like my mouth, my throat, stomach, intestines, just the way that I eat and process food is not normal. Um, those I would say are the biggest issues, but then there's domino effect issues as well.
Do you remember a time where you realized life was kind of going from normality to, wait, this is a big health concern and my life's not going to be the same ever again?
I mean, there were little moments throughout the course of my life. I remember the first big one is when I had to quit all my sports. And I was probably 9 or 10 years old when that happened because of my joints and I couldn't really breathe. And that was a moment where I thought, wait a second, I don't like this. But it wasn't a mindset where I thought, this is just going to get worse. I didn't really understand what was happening. It was just, I have to quit sports. And over time is when I understood how much this was going to impact me.
Mm.
So it wasn't like an initial, wait, everything's going to change,
Yeah, it was just like, okay, I guess I can't do this, but
but I can do everything else.
yeah.
Yeah.
But gradually it just kept consuming your normal world.
Yeah.
And so you have getting your sports taken away. Um, like what starts going through your mind as slowly this gets, more aggressive, and your life is looking a lot different than what you were expecting it to look like? What goes through your mind?
I mean, honestly, my initial approach was to just not think about it and not talk about it. With my go get it attitude, I think that that actually hindered me a little bit because when something would happen that I didn't like, it was like, okay, well, let's throw that out and I'm going to focus on the next thing because there's still things I can do. So let's focus on the possibilities instead of focusing on the losses, which for a while worked out. But then it just built upon itself because, like I said, this disease is progressive. And so I would get back on solid ground, but then that would crumble. And so then I'm trying to dig my way out and get on solid ground. And I could stay on solid ground for a minute, but then that would crumble. And then I would go on another one and that crumbles. So it was like I can't ever get a hold on life and I'm constantly grasping at straws and nothing's sticking. But I never dealt with any of it because I thought, well, I'll just go get something else, which wasn't great, obviously, but
Yeah.
it's how I did it.
Where do you feel like was more of the harder refiner's fire moment for you? Like what age was that?
It started in high school because that was the point when things really started to look different in a lot of different ways. In elementary school, I had to give up some things, but I still was pretty normal. And in middle school, I was abnormal, but there was still enough normality that it was like I was grounded. But in high school, it's like everything was shifting. So that initially started in high school, but I was still able to suppress it. I think the absolute rock bottom was in the college years where my health took a decline, that where I didn't know what my future was going to be. It seemed to be very, very bleak. And then a couple years later, I had to drop out of college, which that was the last thing I had. That was my last pillar. And so when that was gone, then it was like I literally have nothing left. I have nothing. And I don't know what to do about it because there's no cure. And there's like I've tried all my options. and there's just nothing. And that was really, really hard, obviously. And I didn't know how to cope, especially because it had just gotten so bad. Because I had pushed everything away and I hadn't dealt with any of it. So it was like this Pandora's box of probably 13, 14 years of collective trauma and pain that I had not even begun to process or deal with. So it was extremely, extremely overwhelming for me.
Wow. And so you felt like you've suppressed it for over 10 years.
Yeah,
And that's got to start to weigh so much. And then one day you felt like it unleashed a little bit.
yeah.
Take me through that day.
So I was struggling going back and forth my last semester of college because I knew that that was it. I knew I couldn't continue on, but I didn't want to go there. So it was this fight of it's over. But then I'm saying, no, I got to keep going. I got to fight. And then it's no, it's over. And it's like, I got to keep going. I got to keep fighting. And I remember I got so desperate at one point that I saw a therapist, which was a huge deal because I had seen a therapist before and it was a terrible experience. And then I did like a group therapy type of an experience and it was horrible. So, me wanting to go to a therapist was like, I'm so desperate. And I sense that I'm about to crumble and I feel like I need help. So, I went to this therapist and it was a disaster. And that was the moment
What
that
do you
day.
feel made it seem like a disaster?
So, what each therapy experience was a little bit different. Like the reason why it was a disaster was different. The last one, it was a disaster because I was wanting hope. I went into that saying, I need something to hold on to. I need something to make me feel like there's happiness and purpose and something to fight for.
You're just grabbing for hope.
Yeah, just anything. And so I go to this therapy session and there's no hope. We ended the session and it was like, there's no solutions. Because it was a situation too where it's not like I was going and saying, this is how I feel. And he's saying, no, that's incorrect. It's like everything that I was saying is like, yep, that's right. That's correct. And so then I'm going home and thinking, so then that's it. There's nothing, just like I feared. The worst case scenario is reality. And what am I supposed to do with that? And so that was the rock bottom of my last straw that I was grasping at. It was that hope, like you talked about that. Just looking for some kind of hope, anything. And there just wasn't. So then I crumbled.
Dang. And uh, it's really admirable to see you now versus like hearing where you were at.
Mm.
And something I want to touch on around that, like suppressing and then just the explosion. Someone that is possibly suppressing, you know, um, really taking in one of their trials or dealing with, any hardship, but they're just kind of pushing it to the side. What would you tell them? Or what would you have told your old self?
It's a tricky situation because one of the problems is if you're not ready to face it, then it doesn't go well. And that's what happened with my first therapy experience. My family are the ones that basically forced me to go, and I wasn't ready for it. And when you go into a situation like that and you're not ready, it's worse than if you had never gone. So I think it's the situation of maybe my advice is to start very, very small and don't go places that you're uncomfortable with almost. I've been talking to another systemic scleroderma patient who is actually living in France, so we only communicate via email. And she talks about this like deliberate suppression, but it's not I'm permanently suppressing it. It's like this is too much for me to handle right now. So I'm going to actively put it aside for now with the intent of going back someday to process. I'll try again later. And in the meantime, I'm going to start with things that I can handle. And so that's maybe my suggestion is don't try and go into the deep end right away. If you're struggling with it, start with the shallow end. Just get going with things that you can handle. And eventually you'll be able to get the deep end stuff, but don't try and force that really intense stuff before you're ready to actually go there.
I like that. Yeah, just little by little get into it, because if you just open up like the Pandora's box,
Yeah.
you're probably gonna crumble.
Yeah.
At least from like your experience, it's like it's gonna shatter you.
Yeah.
So how do you take all these shattered pieces of Emma and build? I'm thinking like the David, where you've come so far. Uh, like, what is the shift? Is that a gradual shift? Is that a light switch moment? What happened for you where you realize there still is hope?
Yeah. So the idea to start working on it was more of a light switch. But the actual working on it was very, very gradual. It was that what I just talked about, the shallow end. You got to start very small and take those little pieces and start to find purpose for them of what can I do with this? What am I learning from this? And then that can build into the bigger stuff. But it's the big shift for me was what can I take away from this? What can I learn from it? How can I grow from it? How can I use it? Of just trying to repurpose and reshift my focus, if
Mm,
that makes sense.
totally. Yeah, that I think it's cool. I don't know why my mind's going here, but every time I've been in the like heart of the storm of my life, I've seen I'm imagining that picture of like Christ reaching his hand in the water for Peter.
Mm,
Uh and I in my experience and with a lot of people I've talked about, I feel like when they are in that low, uh that's when you typically, or at least some people tend to see Christ in those moments, and he shows himself more presently in your world. Did you have any moments that were eye-opening like that you were asking for help and you received something?
yeah, so I am one of those people that at the rock bottom, that's when I turn to Christ, that's when I accept his help. I had in my early years, I actually didn't take things out on God. I think I had this innate understanding that, first of all, life isn't meant to be perfect. And second of all, God isn't here to make life perfect either. So I'm not supposed to be born with perfection. God's not coming in to make it perfect. He's more there to help and to guide and to give us tools to get through it. So in the beginning, I didn't really have a problem with God that I can remember. Things started to shift in high school only because I felt like it was too much. It's like I get the hard things help us grow, but this feels excessive and it feels outweighed. Like I have all these problems and other people don't seem to have that. So why can't it be more even instead of just so contrasted? And then I went through a period of being really angry with God where I didn't want to talk to him and I didn't want to worship him. I was somewhat cursing his name of, "I just feel like you're cool. I hate you. I don't want to pray. I don't want any of this relationship." But then in the rock bottom, it was like, I am so desperate and there's no one else that I can go to. The last person I want to talk to is Christ, but I know he's the only one who can help me, which was a very unique situation to be in, a complicated situation. And so I had prayed not necessarily a happy, like, please help me prayer. It was more of an angry prayer of just trying to unleash. It's that explosion of I can't take it anymore and I can't pray nicely because I just don't feel that. So I just unleashed
Mm.
this anger towards God and was just wondering why.
Yeah.
Like, why is it this bad? And had a spiritual experience where I, what I believe is felt heaven. I didn't see it, I didn't go there. So it wasn't anything where, like, I literally went there, but I just had this presence of God and this heavenly experience in the love. And that was a very interesting experience because the first thought that I had was, is this all I have to experience? It doesn't even feel that hard anymore. Like, it's not that big of a deal comparing to what is waiting for me. And that was really shocking because moments earlier, I was saying that it was too hard and it was unbearable. And then there I was saying, it's actually not that bad. And so after that experience, the the power faded, that spiritual experience faded, and I found myself back in reality
Mm.
where I am in so much pain. And anybody who's experienced pain, whether it's physical, emotional, psychological, whatever, you know that it's really hard to distract yourself and time moves very slowly. It's just hard to get through the day. So that came back in full force. But there was that little bit in my mind where I thought, okay, maybe I'm not understanding everything. It's clear that God does care. He does love me. There is beauty. And so that was the moment where I said, okay, I'm willing to put in the work because I feel like it's not my time to go and I can't live like this. So then I'm turning to God more kindly of what do I do? How do I get through this? Because I'm only 22. I have a very, very long life left. So I need help to make something of it.
I believe there's this power of God's compensation where, for you to be able to go through the trials that you've gone through, it's doctrine that he will not let someone go through something that they are not able to handle. But even in those moments, I feel like that God's compensation comes in where, like, you needed something in that
Hmm.
moment when you're in dire need, and where the prayer is so heartfelt but with mostly negative emotions,
Hmm.
and he just gives you this hug of love
Hmm.
in a way that you specifically needed, which I like the thought of feeling heaven, and I want to understand that better. I've had spiritual experiences where I've felt on cloud nine of, like, this is beautiful. Like, this is one of the greatest things of life. So for someone that's never felt heaven, try and paint a picture of that. And I know that's probably not an easy ask, but at your best abilities, like, how would you articulate to someone feeling heaven what that's like?
I think it's kind of what you said. It's just the absolute freedom from all cares, which I think that's a scripture. Like, you just feel that freedom. It's the lightweight, it's the love, just all the positive emotions, the peace, the happiness, the excitement, the beauty, the all of it is just so intensely there and it way overshadows any pain that you're feeling. So I think the word I would use the most is it's just freedom.
Freedom. I like that. Yeah. In my experience from, I think it was around 12 to 17, there was no, I had similar feelings to you around God and all of that. And I, I wasn't going through my own intense, horrific experiences, but I was completely numbed out and had no desire of God in any shape or form. And he kept sending me these invitations to like come to him through my friends that I rejected over and over again. And there was one day where I finally like kind of rolled my eyes, giving into an opportunity where people would be talking about Christ. It and I was 17, and I just remember going into it with a horrific mindset. Kind of like probably like your prayer where you're like,
Yeah.
this is bull crap. And so I'm just sitting there rolling my eyes, and slowly um I just felt uh from one moment to the next that a piercing feeling of that love, joy, and peace. And it felt like it took me even out of the room, not visually, but emotionally and internally, where I learned in that moment that God is real and that he loves me so personally. And yeah, I love how you explained how you felt heaven, because that was very similar to me, where I actually came home that night where it was 12:30 at night, and my mom is in bed, and I don't care. I got to go in and tell her. And I was like, "Mom, I know that God's real and that he loves me, and it's just all real what these people have been talking about forever, and I just hadn't experienced it." So, it's special to have those unique experiences. And it's also really interesting to understand why some people have these heavy, deep, needed experiences. Um, I think there's a couple reasons for it, and others don't, and they just have the faith, or they, they've believed for a long time. In these documentaries that we do, I've seen a mix of both of those, where God is so visible in someone's life and physical in people's lives. And there's other cases where there's not a need for some reason. But I'm curious to hear like your thoughts on that. Um, any thoughts on why God shows up uh, more intensely for some people than others?
I have no idea. I think it's a similar question to why do some people have it worse than others, because that's absolutely true. We don't all have equal spiritual battles or physical or emotional battles. There are some people that have such crippling anxiety they can hardly leave their house, and some people, like my mom, has never a day in her life felt any anxiety. And so it's just one of those mysteries that I have no idea. I think there's things to be learned in both scenarios. I don't think that you need to have one path where, like, you can't believe if you don't have these experiences, or you can't learn if you don't have some crazy health challenges. It's whatever you're experiencing. There are things to learn and things to connect with and things to get strength from. So I don't have any insights. I wish I did.
No, it's a tricky thing just that I've been pondering a little bit on. And yeah, everyone's journey and path is so different, and everyone has different needs and wants and desires. And so everyone has their own world that they are taking on, and they need different things for it.
Yeah, and I think timing as well
Mm.
is important. I think if I would have had an experience like that early on, it wouldn't have meant anything to me and it wouldn't have helped me. I think it was, I think everyone will have some spiritual experience like that, but maybe it won't be in this life. Maybe it'll be the next. But I like to think of It's not that people are being completely denied that. It's just maybe it's not your time. Maybe there's something else for you to learn or experience first, and then that will come later.
Yeah. I I love the thought of timing, but it's also frustrating
For
because
sure.
typically I think the natural man in all of us, timing is like one of the hardest things
Mhm.
where it's like, and we're also in a generation where we get anything in 2 seconds of whatever we want when it comes to knowledge, resources. And so I think we all are unintentionally impatient where time in a godly sense is so different. And I've always seen like our earth time here is represented where you have a long string and there's like a knot in the middle, and that knot is like the time of our existence here on earth from what we go through. But also that knot and this time and existence is so important. And so God's timing is very interesting, and it's hard to fully understand. But I've always noticed I understand things looking back and reflecting on it instead of, you know, like I in the moment it's very hard to understand why things are happening, but looking back you can see the picture that he's painting with your world. And anyone at home, I invite you to reflect on your experiences. You don't actually learn from your experience, you learn from reflecting on your experience. And I think as a society we don't take enough time to give ourselves the proper reflection, and that's part of education and learning is like giving you enough time and space to reflect, which is not an easy ask in any way, but I promise you have 5-10 minutes to do that. And if you do choose to do that, be intentional with your thoughts and just try and understand what you need to work through and learn from in your reflection of your past experiences.
Yeah. Well, and there's a quote, I don't remember who it's by, but it's that idea of if suffering alone taught, all the world would be wise. But
Mm,
we're not all wise. And so that's the key, that it's not just hard things, it's not just suffering. You have to do something with it. You have to take the time to learn and process and actively choose to grow from it.
mm.
So I like that.
I know in your story, you had that godly experience and it started getting tougher again. But there's a time, and I don't know in what part of the time frame where you would literally spend your days just kind of looking out the window and speaking with your family members. It sounds like you really were like pushing the world out and you were trying to create your own world or just reflect on everything that was going on. And can you talk us through that a little bit?
Yeah, so that was after the spiritual experience.
Mm,
So, which is just proof that spiritual experiences don't change everything. So, after that spiritual experience, got the prompting to write and wanting to, or God was wanting me to find the lessons, as we talked about, to actively grow and learn, which is overwhelming when you've locked stuff away for, at this point, 13, 14 years. And so I would spend time writing, but then I needed a break and I couldn't really handle any more of my reality. And I would get overstimulated very easily. I still do. So I can't just watch TV, I can't distract that way. And so I spent most of my time sitting on the couch, just staring at the window. And I would think of just other realities or think of other things that could take me away from my present experience. So sometimes it was more daydreams of, if I had all my abilities, what would I do? What would be fun for me? Sometimes I would look around my parents' house and say, how would I change this? If I had a home, how would I decorate it? What's my style? What's my hope for a future? Um, so it was just this constant back and forth of trying to process, but very quickly saying, I need a break. It's too much and I'm losing it. So I have to escape and find something else to think of that's not me. I sometimes, even in these other daydreams, would have a different name. It's like I can't be myself. I have to be somewhere else. I have to be doing something else. I have to be a different person.
So, looking back on that experience, what were some of the learnings of needing that escape? Is that something you're still working on, or what do you feel like you've learned from that?
I am a big believer in distractions. I think that the extreme of anything is not good. I think only living in that space is not healthy. I think having a mindset where it's like I can't ever daydream and I have to only be in my present, I don't think that's necessarily healthy either. Some people live that way and that's great. But for someone like me, I still do sometimes daydream or I'll go off on other topics, and whether I don't feel like it's as different as my life. Meaning before it's like I'm a doctor living in London. Like that's not even remotely my life. Sometimes my distraction now is more going on Google and saying what's this autoimmune disease? What does it mean? What does it do? Or what's this location? I've never been to Paris. What's it like? What are the pictures? What can you do there? What so it's not like I'm pretending I have a life I don't, but it's just distraction. I'm escaping
Mm.
my life. And I've learned that that's actually okay, that it can be healthy and it can be necessary even when trying to go through life. So I think for a while I went through a period of, oh, I can't do that. That's bad. That's not healthy. But I've arrived at a place of, if it's done in moderation, then I think it's sometimes helpful even, and
Yeah.
also just okay in general.
No, I'm totally with you on that. I've been told that I'm like the dreamer, optimistic entrepreneur guy. And so what helps me get through a lot of the heart of whatever circumstance uh that I'm going through is typically my why that's a lot deeper, and the vision of where I'm taking things. And I find it insanely valuable to set up the future. And so for Emma, what does the future of your world, like what do you want that to kind of look like from what you're creating? And then after, I would like to dive into your book a little bit.
Yeah. So my realistic future is public speaking. I think that's what I want to do. I do some social media work. I mostly tolerate social media work. It's not my favorite, but I think that it's still helpful and it's still something that I want to do. I like connecting with people. I've learned a lot from that experience, but I feel like my main sites are public speaking. I want to travel around and talk to people and talk about my experiences and talk about finding that inner confidence.
Hmm.
Um, so that's what gets me up every morning. It's what motivates me and makes me want to keep fighting and keep processing and keep working, even though life is still very hard and I struggle with chronic fatigue. So, physically and mentally and emotionally, it can be difficult to do stuff, but that's consistently the thing that makes me say, all right, I can keep going. I can keep doing this.
Yeah. And obviously you've been on such a journey with confidence,
Hmm.
having physical changes and all that. What, like, how would you help someone become more confident?
I think it has to start with the inner. Because I think that sometimes what people do, and I'm noticing it more now with all of the plastic surgery and all of these cosmetic stuff, is they try and start with the appearance and then they think that will help the inner confidence if I can just get this under control. But I mean maybe that helps some people, but I think starting with the inner helps because it's like it doesn't matter what changes, it doesn't matter what happens, it's here. and it's solid and it's bigger than how I look. It's bigger than what job I have. It's bigger than how much money I have. So if I end up getting those things later, that's amazing. But if I don't, my confidence isn't at risk. I'm not having to scramble to try and fight my way back. I can have this solid foundation. So, my biggest suggestion is start with the inner, start with your purpose, your beliefs, just your identity, and then work your way from there.
And how are you able to do that in your world?
Writing, writing to process and find the lessons.
Yeah.
That's really what it is because my life is identical pretty much to what it was before. So like I have no confidence to I have a lot of confidence. Nothing's really changed from an outside physical perspective, but my perspective shifted. My lens that I was looking through shifted. My understanding shifted. My purpose shifted. And so it's like I was able to find that inner just lesson of purpose and all of that stuff and just the wisdom to say it's okay that I look this way. It's okay that my life is hard because I'm chasing something bigger.
Mm. And like what do you feel like so you started writing.
Mhm.
What were the things that you had to get over in your writing, and what were some of those lessons what that made you go from internally I maybe don't feel enough, you don't know what your world is going to look like, and it sounds like from your therapy session like it seemed like all your dreams were going to a place you didn't want them to go,
Mhm.
to now uh, you seem so hopeful. You're a light for good and inspiration. Like that's a really big change.
Yeah.
And so what were some of these things that you were writing down?
So I was doing like question and answer, processing my life through the lens of learning. So it was just basically trying to take the life that I understood and twist it. It's like I used to view it this way. Can I view it in a different way? And so it's learning about the emotions where I feel like, at least for me growing up, there was always this mindset of feeling sad is bad and you get rid of that and you only be happy. Or if you're angry, that's a problem. You can't be angry. You can't be frustrated with God, especially. You have to always be grateful. And so it's learning like the benefit of both. It's this opposition. You can't know what relief is until you felt pain. It's not possible. You can't understand friendships if you've never been lonely. Like, you don't appreciate friendships if you've always had them. And so it's just going through and finding stuff like that of, wait, my emotions are actually okay and they're teaching opportunities. I'm learning that life is meant to be a roller coaster, that it's lots of ups and lots of downs, and that's actually a beautiful thing to experience instead of just being numb and being doing nothing with life. I was learning what makes me happy and what could bring me greater joy, even things as little as springtime. I love the flowers. I love when trees come back to life. It's symbolic and it's beautiful. And so it was just going through and saying, what can I take that I once hated and how can I shift it? And how can I just learn? I listened to one of your other podcast episodes and I don't remember who said it, but was the idea of happiness is a choice, but it's also kind of a muscle and it's something you have to learn. That you don't just wake up one day and say, I'm going to be happy. You have to figure it out. You have to figure out how to be happy and what makes you happy. And then you have to build those muscles and then you have to strengthen them. And even then, sometimes it doesn't work out that way. And you have to take a break to feel the sad. So I loved that idea of I spent the time learning how to be happy and learning how to process and learning how to be okay when I'm not okay.
I like that. Yeah, it's really interesting the happiness journey. And because I think you start in society of this is what makes happiness, and it's almost all wrong, of what we see and what we strive for. But Arthur Brooks, like we have a book over here of him, and I really like his studies on the art of fulfillment of what brings true happiness. And he's broken it down into these categories where number one is having faith in something bigger than yourself. And a lot of people attribute that to God or just a bigger life purpose. Number two is having solid family relationships where you can count on them. And the same goes for friendships. And then the fourth one is your work, which you need to be achieving your life purpose of whatever that looks like. But as you are achieving that, you should be serving the world. And that is like the, the big reality of what happiness, the key metrics to what happiness can really be and how to get there is working on those core things as well. Tony Robbins talks about how important progression is involved in that, but I still feel like that falls under the category of working to achieve your personal purpose.
Hmm.
And I just feel like we all spend so much of our time after monetary gain and random luxury experiences where you know what, you probably have sufficient things in your life right now to be very happy in life,
Mm.
but it's a choice and a perspective to realize. And it's like, you know what, we're located in Utah where um you know, we weren't born where we have to go find food, where um we both came from a family that, you know, we've had two parents in our life. And so it's like there's so many things to look at in the lens of gratitude and focusing on that. I think focusing on gratitude helps you understand what makes you happy. And I don't know, is there anything you want to touch on with that?
Yeah, I think gratitude is that seeing and appreciating the good within the bad. Because I spent so much time only focusing on the bad and only seeing that. That's where I lived constantly, which I feel like is natural to want to do that when you're in pain. But I felt like there was this whole other side and this whole other beauty that God had given me and that my family had given me and my friends had given me, that I was just like, nope, I'm not going to think about that. I'm not going to pay attention. And it was almost disrespectful to not see that also. That's a reality. And so I like that with gratitude, that it's gratitude isn't pushing away the hard. It's not saying that that's no longer relevant. It's saying there's more to it than just that. And it's a gift to be able to experience the things that I'm experiencing, even when it's hard, like this earth life. And all that we have is a gift. And let's acknowledge that as much as we acknowledge the hard.
Yeah. And for you, what do you feel like the big gifts are through your trials that you've seen and learned?
I think just perspective and understanding also what like the good of life is, which is interesting because I feel like I've lost a lot of the good, but me losing the good has helped me understand the good. It's like I don't have it, but I appreciate it and I long for that. I can't wait for the day when my body works and I can move and I can run, and when I can eat. I can't eat regular food. So I weirdly appreciate food even though I have nothing to do with food. And I think that that's my whole life is just set me up to have absolute joy in the next life. It's going to be this wildly incredible experience that I only understand because of what I've lost.
Mm,
So I think just that education of what's good, what's beautiful, what's happy, what can you anticipate, that's what I appreciate the most.
mm. And what joy do you find here on this earth? Like what's really been joyful for you?
I like the learning. I like that understanding. It brings me joy. I like the just details. I think what I can experience now that I love is just the little things. Like I had said, the trees coming back to life and seeing the flowers and having blankets and heating pads and watching a show and having the rain fall. I love the sound and the smell of rain. It's the little things bring me more happiness than the big things personally. And so that's what I try and focus on. That's what I consistently go back to. I have my future goal of public speaking, but that alone is not going to do it for me because I'm not doing that every day. I can't even do it every week or every month. That's not what's happening right now. So if that's where I'm turning to, that's not going to be a good life. It's the little daily things that give me the strength to keep going while I wait for the bigger moments on earth and the bigger moments in the heaven experience.
And through your personal life experiences, what is what's a message that you wish you could just share from the mountaintops? Like if you could scream anything and there's thousands of people, what would you want them to understand or what would you talk about with them?
That you can find fulfillment and happiness no matter what you're experiencing. That you don't need to change your life to experience it, it's already waiting for you. I talked about in another conversation, I think it was another podcast, that sometimes we plant these seeds of what we want and we just stare at the ground and we're waiting for it to grow. But God is saying, there's already this tree over here. You can experience this now. While you wait for this, you can still wait. But sometimes we're so obsessed over, I'll be happy when this happens. I'll be fulfilled when I can have this. And I'm just so passionate that yes, that can bring happiness, and I hope you get that someday. But in the meantime, there's happiness and fulfillment and purpose and relationships that are available now. And that's enough. That's all you really need to have this earth life joy. And then it'll be expanded upon later, but you can have it now. You don't have to wait for it.
I That's just having me reflect a little where it's just like what am I taking for granted, you know? And everyone at home, realize the beauty that's in your life and what what seed have I planted that I am just waiting for anxiously versus where I could be enjoying it in a different avenue of a similar experience. I think that's really insightful and special. Emma, what's the legacy that you care to leave behind if today were your last day and your last message, like what would you want to be remembered for?
I think as someone who just found purpose and found the beauty, I would hope that my family, my nieces and nephews, would be taught that Emma had a really hard life, but she also had a really good life. And you can have that too. And it's just that hope. I want to give people the hope of it's going to be okay and you can do it. You really can. With me, I know we're doing a documentary where we'll go more into my life and my health. And I think people will see from that, yeah, it's been a really, really hard, really painful life physically and emotionally and spiritually. It's been really hard, and I overcame it. And I know that there are some people who have it worse than me, and they can overcome it too, and they have overcome it. And I get inspiration from them, and I hope to be that inspiration for other people too. That, like, there's just always hope, there's always beauty to be experienced.
Amazing. I love that a ton. I think you bring a lot of insight into the beauty of life. And before we close, tell us a little bit about your book and what someone will gain from that experience.
Yeah, so I wrote it in question and answer form because in trying to navigate that Pandora's box, it was like it's just too overwhelming. I can't do it all at once. So, doing questions was a way for me to slowly pick away at it and slowly process. So, it's question and answer where I'm talking about my life, also talking about the lessons, and just sharing some of my thoughts. And it is on Emerging Bookshelf is the company that I just signed with. And I hope that people will just gain a different perspective. Because I think that we all go through life and we only have one life and we can't experience everything that there is to offer. There's just too much to experience. So the only way that we can get a deeper understanding and a deeper education on earth is if we learn from other people. And so I thought I want to share and hope that people will read it and say, oh, I've never thought about that before. I've never understood that before. I haven't experienced this before. And I hope that they can learn from me, but also feel inspired to learn from their lives. I hope it's almost like a mirror where they'll look at it and say, oh, wait, how do I feel about mine? What do I have to offer? What's my purpose? Do I have that strength? Can I get through my stuff? And I hope that they'll take that and then apply it to themselves, not just think about me.
Yeah, it sounds like a book of deep reflection and inspiration. And
Yes.
the book, it's called In the Quiet Heart by Emma Heiner.
Mm-hmm.
So go check it out. And honestly, it's been a complete honor to have you come on here. And I know this is one of those episodes that is going to touch some hearts at home. So thank you for being who you are, the raw, authentic Emma that I'm really grateful that you've chosen to take your experience and be vocal about it, because it's an experience that will help millions of people, and I'm happy that I get to witness and be a tiny part of your journey. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Well, it's been a great podcast. Everyone at home, know that I love you, and grateful for all your support that you've been giving the Life Legacy podcast. And the invitation here is just realize what you already have in life and learn where you can be more grateful for what you have, and continue showing your love to all the people around, and stay in a lens of fulfillment and what really makes you happy. And whatever you're going through at home, uh, just know that there can be some positive learnings from it, and there's hope to be had. Whatever you're experiencing, if you come closer to God, I just know that He will show you whatever you need to have more hope. So nothing but love for you guys. And Emma, I'm very grateful for this time that we've had together. So thank you. And for everyone at home, thank you.
Thank you. I really love this.
Okay, that's podcast.